Let's wait for some folks to.
Yep, it has begun.
It has begun. I'll wait for some folks to trickle in.
Do you always play in pointer lock or drag to rotate, Andy, or do you change it up depending on the level?
Yeah, I don't usually play on pointer lock, but again, I've just been getting used to just this kind of camera manipulation, which I think might not be the best. And also, I use like a trackpad instead of a mouse.
Mm-hmm.
Usually,
Yeah,
so
that makes it harder.
yeah,
That's gonna be really hard.
Yeah.
But all right, we're live. We're live. We got people watching. What's going on? Everybody,
Welcome, everybody.
Spations. Welcome to Teaching the Toolkit. We're back again. Jake here, head of community at Spatial. We got Jack as well.
Guys, doing support at Spatial.
And we got a special guest this week. Andy from the Spatial team is here. What's going on, Andy?
How's it going?
It's better now that you're here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, Andy.
Andy is one of our, how would you describe yourself, Andy? Incredible Unity engineer, game developer, wonderkind extraordinaire.
Thank you.
You've been working on all kinds of stuff with Spatial, but most recently you helped build Infinite Ascent, which is one of the Spatial games that our team's been building the last couple of weeks, couple of months.
Yeah, exactly.
To really show like the art of the possible with Spatial. It's both been like a learning for our team, like how do we can best put the toolkit, the creator toolkit, the Unity SDK like to use, and then as the team's building it, right, like learn what we can put back into the toolkit to make it easier to build experiences in games.
Mm-hmm.
So Andy, maybe you want to give like a little like TLDR on Infinite Ascent, like what you worked on, and then I think you'll kind of walk us through some stuff today.
Sure. So Infinite Ascent is a very interesting game in which it's basically a tower that's going to be reset every 8 minutes. And what you have to do is basically try to get as high as you can in these 8 minutes. And after the 8 minutes expire, the tower recreates itself with a randomized version of all the obstacles. So for example, in this, the first obstacle or section is called Whoosh, which is, well, I guess it's kind of hard because it has like a floating platform that can kill you. And then once you get up a section, you can find the different chests, for example, this one, and this gives you both gems as well as level. All right, it's for some reason it's lagging. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it's like really, really hard. Like I'm actually somehow, I don't know, I'm kind of up there now, but it's still on level 1. But this is like probably the best I've ever done. This is the real punch wall simulator I was saying before, because I just want to punch wall every time. It's so hard.
I'm trying to give you the confidence to not get killed.
And I'm still working on it.
Make it, yeah.
Imagine your little avatar on that left side multicolor like graph thing just all the way at the top. I think that's really cool how you put that in there too.
Yeah, so we have two basically leaderboards, so to speak. For the first one is the tower here, and we have like a preview of the colors of all the sections and what each player is going through, and what sections they're on. So yeah, and then the second one is the level. So levels work like this. Every time you open a chest, you get experience, which if you see this lower bar, it has a blue filling. It says level 3 at the moment. With my character, I'm level 3. And yeah, whenever you open a chest, you get experience. The higher you are, the more experience you get. And it's the idea of the game is to be very, very hard, I guess. And
mission accomplished.
Yeah, But it's also like a motivating factor for some people. I find myself joining this game every day, I guess. But it's not, I guess it's a lot of people don't like that much of I guess, yeah, complicated scenario like this. This is too punishing. Falling down. But it's
Oh,
fun. I mean, it's fun even if you get killed. It's kind of like only up the game, in the sense that like the satisfaction comes from beating a thing that's this hard. But I can understand that it is frustrating, which is, I guess, part of what makes it fun for some people.
yeah,
like
it
feeling-
accomplishes making you feel things, that's for sure. I've yet to make it to the top, but I'm determined to make it to the top. Eventually, I will. I know I will.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things that this space has is the randomization of the tower itself. We created the whole sections as separate prefabs, and we actually we instantiate them at the same time for all the users that we have. So we kind of synchronize the whole level generation throughout everyone that's playing. So whenever we're like the tower resets for anyone that joins later or is playing at the same moment, we're gonna get the same tower. And that was like a very interesting problem to solve. It's fortunately it wasn't hard of a solution, but it was creative, I think, and it kind of has to do with how you understand how random numbers are generated, because this is a random tower with random elements. But if you like synchronize randomness, like say I want to just tell your computer and tell my computer to randomize, they can come up with different stuff, right? So what we did was we are synchronizing what is called the randomization seed. So basically, a randomizer usually works with a seed. A seed is like an integer that's fed to the system that actually starts randomizing with a starting number, and then the list goes on, and it's always a different number. But if you always set the same seed, the same pattern arises. So what we do is that we synchronize the seed for everyone that's on the room, and then everyone, whenever they randomize the level, they're gonna get the same exact result. Yeah. So yeah, this is it's, I guess it's kind of hard, I guess, to explain, but it's really just like the RNG starting value, so to speak, and everything random up to that point. If it's the same value, it's going to be the same.
So these are all like, each section is kind of pre-built and pre-designed, but the order or even which ones appear is randomized, and the order they appear is randomized.
Yeah, exactly. The combination. Yeah, like for example, section 1, section 40, section 13, like that order is randomized. And then, yeah, what we sync is like the randomization number so that we can generate the same level for everyone.
Yeah. How many different like levels are there, like different options are there like in total?
50.
50? Wow.
Yeah. That's why you usually get a lot of different, I guess, sections that you haven't tried out. And ideally, we would be creating more so that it's an ever-expanding game. And you don't, like, if you play this game a lot, the tower just reset, and now it's a new randomization. And this one, laser tag, is pretty hard. Yeah, this one's very hard, I think.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and it's even like more brutal with the death animation where we just turn to like bones and come falling down. Makes sense.
Yeah, I almost made it to the second level. It's too hard. So yeah, it's a very interesting I don't know if you have any questions regarding this.
No, I'm just trying to play it now, and I'm about to punch my computer screen because I can't get even, like, I'm lucky if I get up the ladder at the beginning, let alone like that's an accomplishment for me. Is just getting up the ladder to start, let alone any of these levels.
Yeah. What camera do you use? Do you like move it up?
Usually I use the pointer lock. I like using pointer lock in this. That makes it much easier for me.
But there's a lot of times like having the camera on top of your character works better, so that you can calculate better what you can.
Yeah, I do wish we had like a shortcut sometimes to switch between them, because I do. Yeah, that's true. I do switch sometimes, so I can like better get a sense of like where I'm gonna land.
And you kind of lose sense of height on certain things.
Yeah, dealing with like depth and height.
There's some suggestions that we should like have a pile of bones at the bottom.
At the bottom, yeah, that'd be funny. It would get pretty. It would fill up probably the whole tower pretty fast.
Yeah, that would be a shortcut.
That would terrify me if I come in and there's just a giant pile of bones that keeps getting higher. Like, oh man, this is
my gosh, this one is so hard, but I'm so close.
Oh, I made it. But yeah, so anyway, Andy, so which parts of the game did you work on? You worked on the tower, like randomization, and also power ups.
Yeah, I worked
as well, right?
Yeah, I actually worked on everything. I think I like the only thing I didn't do is the level design. So we had someone else, Galen, who worked on most of the levels. And then we had Felipe, who is my brother, who worked on like some of the art assets and stuff. So yeah, it's but mostly the whole programming and everything, it was up to me. So yeah, I can talk about anything regarding this game, I guess.
Yeah, if there's any questions in the chat, let us know if there's any particular thing from Infinite Ascent that you want to see. But I think, and we can try and answer those during the stream. But I think you had a sample project we can walk through, maybe looking through like how to grant like players power-ups and stuff. I think could be really interesting for our creators and builders who are building their own games. I think that'd be super cool.
Sure. I'm just gonna show a little bit of Infinite Ascent first and see how we coded this. We have like some of the things that are in place are very, I guess, are ways I do stuff, like sending a message or not sending, like communicating between different sections of the game, or things that I subdivided. For example, I created an equipment controller, and then I created a canvas like that has the custom store that sends message to the equipment controller. So that kind of stuff is very interesting. One of the, like, for example, if you see, this is the game controller, it has a lot of data, a lot of nodes. And I always subdivide this into sections, like into manageable, smaller pieces of code, I guess, or functions, so to speak. So for example, remember that we said only, like, there's always the same tower for everyone. So we have this game controller object, which I added as a synced object. I added this this component to the game controller. And so everyone that joins the space is going to have the same object synchronized. And this object has like the random number that I was speaking about, as well as the timer and the timer multiplier. These are all synced variables. So anytime that anyone joins, they're gonna have the synced object. So they have the absolute same timer, they have the absolute same random number, and the absolute same timer multiplier. The timer multiplier basically increments whenever someone gets to the top. So it starts going faster, right? So And the idea of the game controller here is to manage the synchronized things that we need for the tower. And we might say, like, for example, okay, so if we're only synchronizing these elements, how are we generating the whole tower? Like the tower itself, we have 7 sections, right? That should be synchronized for everyone. So that's the reason actually I wanted to do it this way, is because I didn't want to have like each section be a synchronized object and be created and be destroyed, but rather just have one single number, which is this random number, which is the seed for the randomization. So whenever there's a start, the game controller starts, basically the first thing it does, or the first important thing it does, it checks if it's owned locally, if this game controller is owned by a certain user. So for example, if I join and then Jake joins and then Jack joins, this game controller is going to be owned by the first person that joins. So in this case, it will be me because I joined first. So only the person that owns this game controller is going to build, call this custom event that I created, or think of it as a function if you're a programmer, that's called build level. So anytime, whenever I join, I'm the host, so I will build the level. And what building the level is really just one single thing, which is setting the random number. So it just randomizes, sets a random value from 0 to 9999, and it sets the variable. But since this is a synced object, everyone, including this, the host, is going to get this event triggered. The event is called on synced variable change. So whenever the random number changes, we're going to rebuild the level based on this random number. So this is the way. I also added like a custom like event to force a build in case like we really needed to on a certain client. But ideally, it only happens whenever the sync variable changes. So and once this is done, what we do is that we set the, as you can see in this highlighted node, we set the initial seed to this random number, and then anytime I use random range, for every client that executing this, because we have the same initial seed state, we're gonna get the same what you called number array or number sequence. So how do we use randoms? We use randoms to basically grab a section from the section cache, which is basically a game object that has like 50 sections. And we randomize, hey, I want to get index number 15. Okay, I grab this section and then I place it on top of the tower. And then let's go do this 8 times. So let's go again. Let's grab a random section. Let's see, 49. Okay, let's put it on the tower. And then everyone that's connected, that's rebuilding the tower, because we have the same random generator, random seed, we are going to get the exact same response for every client. So that's why we all get the same tower. So it was very interesting. We actually, if we see like we have a section cache here, it's a disabled game object with all the sections at the moment. And whenever I instantiate them, I place them on the tower. I think it's here in this level sections parent. And I place a copy of one of the sections here in the level sections parent, which makes it be able to be displayed. I also enable the game object then. And I leave them as disabled on the scene so that they're already loaded in memory, but they're not rendering. They're not processing at all. So I just basically clone that already existing piece of memory, I guess, and then I show it on the tower. So it's efficient and it's quick. And I think it's also very interesting that it can be like the same exact value for everyone.
No, that's super interesting. How do you, for I guess some of the visual scripting newbies out in the audience and stuff too, how are you basically taking one of those levels and copying it and moving it into the parent, like the tower parent object?
Sure. So I created, let's see. The first thing I did is, let me see the code. So create mid sections. This is the section we want. So basically we have this node that's called GameObjectInstantiate. Let me just zoom in a little bit. So this basically instantiates a copy of either a prefab or a game object on the scene. So because, as I said, I'm getting basically a random item from the section cache. The section cache is this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm basically, when I do this get child, I'm selecting a random child from the cache. So like I say, give me index number 0 through, I don't know, 50, if that's the maximum number, right? So I get that child, and then I instantiate it, and I set its parent. Like when you use GameObjectInstantiate, we have several overloads. So I am using this one so that I can also set the parent. And as you can see, we are setting the parent as a transform that I have that's called level transform. And the idea here is that I can also destroy like everything from that. Like whenever I want to recreate the tower, I just destroy all the children from level transform and then like start adding associating things.
Got it. And when you add it as a child object, it'll also set it at the transform, the location of the level transform object as well, or are they already placed there?
No.
I guess how are you placing, like in terms of their?
Yeah,
their
so
location?
I initially I was doing that, like I was instantiating and then placing, instantiating and placing, but because there are some like during development, we figured that we had like these things called distortions that could make the sections change a little bit. Like for example, there's a distortion that adds a section like underneath like the first one. So that was kind of hard to reposition everything. So what I did was I started instantiating first. So all the for loop, if you see the body only instantiates, sets active, and then like sets the name for the game object. And then afterwards, I called a place sections, which actually places the sections on top of each other. So I created a custom event. Again, I am because I am a coder, like a first nature coder, then this for me makes sense, like subdividing stuff into smaller chunks so that I can just debug different stuff. So in specifically, this place sections is a different function. Let me look for it. I think here it is. And place section just goes through all the sections of the level transform. Well, it uses a flow variable, as you can see here, that's called last section, and it initializes this to the base section. The base section is basically the only section, I guess, one of the only sections, which is this one, that doesn't change ever. So what I want to do is that I want to place sections on top of this, starting from this, like trying to arrange so that this platform is also the same, like it's stuck with the next platform. So let me go through the game so that I can explain that a little bit better. So if you see Infinite Ascent, well, the first section here doesn't have the starting platform. But as you can see, for example, on this section that's over there, you have a green platform over a blue platform. I mean, a blue platform over a green platform. And the idea there is that they should always be on top of each other. So, and also, as you can see on the edges, because this looks like Lego bricks, they should also fit like this. So, part of the logic here, and I guess that's why, let me look for it again, game controller. Well, it kind of looks a little bit more complex, I guess. It's that it has to go through all the sections, starting from the bottom section, then placing all the level transform, and then placing the top section on top. because there's a top section, Jake. I know you don't believe it.
I don't think it exists at all.
But yeah, it's this one, right? And
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a section like everything else, but it's just it also has like a little glass so you can see all the people playing still from the top. And yeah, so we on the code we have to place everything on top of the base section, go through all the level transform children. I have a subgraph here that's called place section over section, has some logic depending because of the Lego thing I just mentioned. And then it just places the last top section on top of on the final like generated tower.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's one of the things. And then we add like when we see all the things that we do is first we generate the sections, right? Then we place them, and then we add chests to the ending part of each section, and then we reset the timer and reset the randomized state so that like whenever we open a chest, for example, that's still random. It's not gonna be like always the same for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thanks for walking us through that.
Yeah.
I'm curious, do you have a favorite like level or like a couple like ones that you like the most out of all of them?
I mean, my favorite, I guess, usually are the easiest. I guess.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, it's yeah, I don't know. I feel like Galen wanted to troll a little bit. So that one's kind of easy sometimes, but you have to like hold space once you jump, and you have to do it right at the edge. So it's there
yeah.
you go, Jake. Yeah. Come on, Jake.
Oh, I got it. I did it.
Oh, you did it. Yeah.
This is one of the highest I think I've ever gotten.
Yeah. Oh, I'm collecting the hell. I'm up to 42 gems now. I can't wait to spend them. Do you have any power-ups yourself? Oh, you have a lot of gems. Wow, I just noticed that.
Oh yeah, I bought some stuff. Like I went to the store and I bought like a gem pack.
Oh, I didn't even see that. That's amazing.
Yeah, the store here, like we implemented a custom shop that we can trigger with the same shop button. We actually had like a small button here to open our custom shop, but then we realized that we have an event, or I realized that we have an event. That's let me look for it. That I can, yeah. So on shop menu changed. So whenever you open or close the shop menu, you get this event. So whenever this pops up, I just like tell the shop menu, the spatial shop menu, to close so that I can show my custom shop. So yeah, it's I mean, it's kind of a hack, but it works because I personally needed it for my custom game. So, but yeah, it was a lot of work initially because we were working still on the spatial shop while I was working on the game. I had to build this, but nowadays I could probably go back and just use the spatial shop for most of it.
It's cool that you implemented that, though. I'm gonna have to buy some gems myself because I need some power-ups badly.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy.
Somebody was asking about how did you set it up? How did you set up the progression bar on the left side? Like, how did you get that little graphic to work? Like, I can imagine how it works, but like from the Unity side, what did you have to do to achieve that?
Yeah, so let's see. Let me try to remember. One second. So here's the tower bar. Let me see in 2D. So the tower bar is composed of tower colors and tower players. So the tower colors themselves, like they are basically squares. Let me try to select each one. How did this work? I recall 1 second. Okay. So let me try to. I think what I have is like several rects that basically have this stretchiness on them, and I can set its height depending on the like where the tower level is. So every section I have, like for example, this one. Let me try to find it. 1 second. I'm trying to figure out how this worked. Oh, right. We have a slider for each one. I forgot. So, okay. So each of the sections here is a slider. It has a slider, which is basically something like this element. And you can go to the top or like lower it down. So what I did was I'm basically adding a lot of sliders. And the higher the tower level is, it goes to 100%. And then and the lower it is, it goes like 80% and 60%. And because each of them have different colors, they stack up. So for example, yeah, if I have this tower, this is like the lowest most tower. So for example, let's say this is 0.036, then I want, this is the brown one, I think, this one to go here. And again, the higher it is in the back, it's gonna look like it's part of it. And this is like the white background. So, and it's also like top level. The top section is always white. So this one never changes, I guess. And the other ones are the ones that change colors depending on what section is loaded in. And yeah.
That's really cool. And so it's just a script tracking just the height of the players, and it just moves their little icon up. Yeah.
And well, this is the first the first part of the tower, which doesn't track the players, but rather tracks the sections that generate.
Okay, yeah.
And then for the players themselves, we have a script that basically has like let me just enable one of them. That basically has like whenever a tower is rebuilt, it basically sets a max value and the current value. So we have a slider as well, if you can see here. So whenever it goes up to the top, it's the slider value is 1. Whenever he goes, he's on the middle, like he's gonna change. So anytime the user is like changing heights, like jumping around and everything, I'm synchronizing the Y value, and then I'm actually let me try to look for it. I'm setting the value to so each of these objects has a player that's assigned to it. And maybe I should go through that at some point, but each player has like a height, which is the current height they are at. And that's synchronizing between all the clients. So if we're all on Infinite Ascent, we all have like a certain player object that has a height. And that's synchronized. And whenever the UI is created, a certain player is assigned to a certain thumbnail in the UI. So this one, for example, would be assigned to me. And whenever I go up, it's going to synchronize the player Y value, I guess, or the height. No.
Mm-hmm. And how are you getting their information, like their profile picture and things like that, and assigning it to that particular spot?
Sure. So remember, I said that they are assigned a player. So let me look for it. I have what's it called? A prefab that's called the local player controller, which only has like, it's a synced object. So anytime a user joins, a new one of this is created by the game controller representing that user. So, and for example, if I join the tower, I have one of these. If then Jake joins, there's another one created. It has all these synced variables that represent each of the players. So for example, it has all the equipment I have. It has the level, the height, and this is all synced so that you guys can see my wonderful aura and like trails and stuff. And that's
nice.
part of why it's synced. again, this was also developed before we had equipment, or not. I think it was in like at the same moment that equipment was just coming out, but it was a different type of equipment because we had to unequip some stuff, and then so we ended up synchronizing everything on the user space. So, and then we have height and level, but we also have some variables that aren't synced that are used for the player, like name and the texture. So in the profile picture, which is this texture, and I think the name is somewhere around here. Maybe I refactored it. But how it works is that whenever, let's see, okay, when the object is initialized, I created a different like I just called a get profile picture with the owner of this synced object specifically. I can send in any actor ID. So for example, if I wanted to get the local actor, we could just do this and get the profile picture for that local actor. And then once that is in, that should this has to be a coroutine though, because this is asynchronous. So basically, you grab whatever node it starts from, and you have to check this checkbox that says coroutine. And then you call the get profile picture. And once this is out, I save it on a variable. And then like I through my messaging system I created, I call the onTexture changed. But what you can do here is basically just instead of doing this, you can probably set like set image. So you could call this from a raw image, which is something that you can place on the UI, and set the texture to this on a specific raw image element. So for example, on my end, when I created the tower bar, each tower player. So as you can see, we have like a temporary asset here. It's an image that I use for testing, but this is a raw image on my canvas. And what I'm doing is I'm basically on the script, I'm setting the texture for that image to be the profile picture. So hence, when we run the game, we see all this profile picture. Yeah, there are some that don't load because they're either anonymous users or they have something that had a problem. I mean, Spatial have a profile picture right now, like this blank one, I guess. But other than that, that's how you can do it.
Thank you for that. Cool. Able to see the progress.
All right.
That's some very.
I don't know what you guys want me to show next.
Oh, sorry, my internet was just cutting out. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think one of the other pieces that I think is super cool is you kind of showed the shop, but it's the ability to get power-ups to help you like get like invincibility or I think maybe like fly or double jump or other things like that. So kind of walk us through like, I guess let's take like one of these examples, maybe like high speed. That's just or which we could choose whichever one you want. And how like what's the process of kind of creating that and then like the flow of building that into the game. Like how would a creator go about adding power-ups to their experience, or like through how you did it here?
Yeah, I think because of how this is made, we created like a bunch of things. There are some distortions and there are some also some equipment stuff. So for distortions themselves, they are synchronized through everyone, and the distortions end when the round restarts, right? So for example, I purchased this high speed. So everyone right now on the space is moving much faster than they were moving before. And same for every distortion here. I can like go negative for everyone so that, you can see things a little bit different. So, and these kinds of things are fun to do, but they require some planning. So on my end, what I did was we had a bunch of distortions that had like some codes on them. So for example, let me try to figure out like distortion collection. So whenever a distortion is applied or bought, it's like it's sent to everyone on the space, and they know the stats of each distortion because I have this collection I created, a prefab that has an AOT dictionary variable. As you can see, because I'm using visual scripting for everything, I need to use variables a lot. So on this prefab itself, we have a list of all the distortions in the game that have little like small IDs for things that each distortion does, so that we can eventually reuse them on other points. So for example, we know that distortion invincibility has this effect type 1 is called set invincible and sets it to 1. And then we have, for example, this one, low gravity, it decreases the gravity by 0.25. And then the fog, it just, the effect type is set _ fog and sets to 1. So these are all basically code names, right, to whatever functionality we want for each distortion. In the case of high distortion, high speed, we have the increased speed by 25%. So again, this is all data, right? So how do we make this data once it's synchronized and I know the actual distortion that just appeared? I created this game object called Game Modifier Controller, which has some basically distortion stats and equipment stats. And as you can see, we have variables for all the code names that we find in distortions. So for example, increase _ speed, set _ invisible. And they all have their own default values set to 0, except coin multiplier, I guess. And then whenever you go to the game modifier controller to the code, let me try to find it. Okay, we have this on distortion appeared. So whenever a new distortion appears, I get it. I just showed you the object that has all the list of distortions. So I get that distortion with a certain ID. And then I extract what the effect type and effect parameter were. Okay, so in this sense, like I showed you, I have like, for example, increase _ speed, and the parameter would be the value, right? So, and then I'm calling a function basically that's called set variable, that I created this subgraph so that I can basically debug and also have these other nodes that are basically telling me if a variable has changed. So this is a little bit of magic I created, but basically what it does is it sets a variable with a name effect type that or the value of effect type 1. So for example, it's gonna set this variable increase speed for the distortion that has this effect type, and it's gonna set it to the value of increased speed that the distortion has. And then it's gonna call this function. Basically, this is a very complex way to do it, but because we had so many distortions, so many equipment, this was the easiest way to do it, the most reusable, but a little bit complex to show. But basically what it's doing is that whenever this increased speed changes on the distortion stats, it's going to set the walk speed for the player, right? Mm-hmm. So what's gonna happen? That every user on the tower at the moment, it's gonna synchronize the active distortions, right? So if someone bought high speed, everyone gets the active high speed distortion, and they're going to get this on variable change increased speed because the distortion actually changes that. And then I'm just gonna activate the walk speed and the run speed, right? So if you see, like I added all the distortion functionality on this one script that's called the game modifier controller. That's basically going to modify everything for you. So whenever you decrease gravity, I just called a local actor set gravity multiplier, for example. And the reason for that is I don't want, like, even if I want to modify everyone's gravity, I should, like, each client should only occupy with himself, because the other clients are going to do the same thing. So everyone's going to get the same functionality. So I don't have to worry about lowering gravity for everyone else, but rather just have to send the message to everyone that the gravity is down, and each client is going to lower their gravity or multiply the gravity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Say for the jump count, for example, we have a power up here that's called double jump. So whenever I purchase this, everyone's going to basically get double jump for this round.
Nice.
Oh,
thanks, Andy. Christmas came early.
Yeah, and exactly, and it's all called through scripts. Like, everything is called through scripts, and like, visual scripting really provides a lot of value, but it does have some degree of complexity in the terms of how you think of how to solve problems. And I think that the important thing I learned from this project was to always try to sync stuff or messages through all clients, and then interpret all the messages for each of the clients, so that they're properly synced, they're all like working correctly, and they can, like, they're easily debuggable. As you can see, I add these like squares to group everything, and for me this is like incredibly useful, because everything has a hierarchy, everything has a way to do stuff. It's incredibly easier to debug everything if I do it this way. So, for example, let me try to find the local player controller. As you can see, it actually has a lot.
Oh wow! The other script was big. This is even bigger.
My brain is hurting.
Yeah. But you don't have. I mean, you only have to like go like, we have it subdivided in several sections so that they can actually make sense. And once you start, like, you just like build a small section, then you add another small section, then all of a sudden you click overview and you have a lot of sections.
Yeah, that's cool.
Don't look down. Don't zoom in.
It's scary, but I mean, it's not as scary if you go like step by step. And in this specific game, we had a lot of things that we have that we added. Specifically, we wanted to synchronize and everything, but it was all like step by step, do section by section, try to be as orderly as possible. So, for example, in my scene, and I've seen a lot of scenes that don't organize that much, but I think it's imperatively important that people start working with scene like really in an ordered manner. Otherwise, it can be a nightmare, specifically for a larger project like this. Again, I find that for coding, I find that for I don't know, the scene management. For example, I have a game object that has all the spatial components here, and then I have all this sections of which are just scripting things, which I also like group up. So like, if I need to debug something, I know what section I have to do, and I know that below this line it's like full environment. So it's yeah, I don't know.
So that's key. So that was going to be something I was going to ask you also if there was any tips that you had for developers, creators in the community, and that's a great tip, is using your scene hierarchy as sort of scene management too, like properly parenting objects and segmenting sections and things like that too. So it's easy to find things and keep things organized, because organization is really key, especially when you have a game or experience it's like this detailed. That's really, really important.
Yeah, so and it's also because like I know they're like, if we work as artists, we usually have a lot of versions of stuff. We usually have like a lot of nodes and stuff. So don't be afraid to reorganize stuff, and like if you have a lot of nodes, don't be afraid to move them to a parent node, whatever. Like this is also valid, and it's easy to do in Unity. But a lot of people, like, They don't want to touch that stuff. They just imported things from Blender, for example, Maya or whatever they did. It's kind of scary sometimes for people to like start reorganizing stuff, but don't be. Like, it's important to be organized. Otherwise, it's gonna be a nightmare in the
Yeah, it takes you longer to find things, or just like anything, I think in life, it's good to be well organized.
Yes,
but
yes.
especially important here.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I'm
That's
curious about, I don't know how much insight you're able to share about it, but now obviously like multiple people were involved with working on this. So like, how do you handle working on like a project like this with multiple people? Like, do you have you being like pretty much like everything comes to you, or is it split up like so people can collaborate on the same like files and stuff, or how does that all work?
Yeah, so we actually worked with, we created a Git repository, and
Okay.
we worked as a team on the same project. We did, however, have to like do a lot of prefabs and stuff so that we can actually work on different sections and they can just be like merged in. So, for example, initially we had this section cache was actually a prefab. Where is it? Where was it? I think prefab here. And whenever artists change each of these sections, they would just go to the actual section they were doing. So let me try to move this to do stuff. That's normal. Oh, let me actually, because we have a lot of sections in this cache. So let me try to, where is it? Select. So all the sections are prefabs, right? And so whenever anyone was working on sections, they didn't have to touch the main scene. They would just touch the prefabs. And yeah, it's all like part of it. It was just very easy to develop this way. If we subdivide in prefabs, it's easy to then just integrate everything, and because no one's touching the same thing. Yeah. But in the case of Infinite Ascent, the Unity apparently when it has so many prefabs under one, like we have all these are prefab variants and they are all on a section cache prefab. I found that the easiest way to actually publish to Spatial with fast iteration time was to unpack the prefab completely and then publish that. It takes way less memory and it's way faster. But this was specifically for this case. We haven't found other projects on our end on Spatial that had this problem, so I had to unpack it. So whenever anyone worked on a new cache, on a new section, and it needed modifications, I needed to basically go back to the scene, re-import the section cache, and then unpack it again. So, but that's not ideally what you have. What you have is actually just a prefab in itself. But that is a way that we managed to work as a team, and I think that's the way you actually have to do it. Just do prefabs. Spatial works great. Unity works great with prefabs, and just let collaboration not get involved with the actual with the progress of the project. I think. For example, for integrating stuff. So, for example, if I need to update a certain section of the level, hopefully you have just one guy modifying the scene, and then everything else is like prefabs. So, for example, if this was a larger level or a larger scene space that has a lot of sections, I would ideally subdivide each section so that, for example, hey Jake, you take on the snowy mountain part. Jack, you take on the greenery pastures, and I'll take on the lava stuff. And then everything's already on the scene, right, as prefabs, and we already have our own prefab to work with. But then we're only modifying that prefab in itself. And then whenever I push changes, I'm changing the actual prefab, not the scene, because the scene is being shared by everyone. But the scene has references to those prefabs, and everyone can work with that.
Got it.
Cool.
That makes a lot of sense. Cool. Any other questions in the chat? Let's see through here if there's any questions. I'm seeing questions from YouTube and LinkedIn. We're also streaming on Twitch as well. It's our newer channel on there. Yeah, and Twitter. Yeah, can't forget Twitter, of course. So one question that Piscium Communication Arts asked, actually halfway through the stream, when it came to planning this out, like what was the process from like the team building it in terms of designing it? Was it started with sketches, or how did, from like a game design perspective, like how did you guys go about doing that?
So via game design, there was a lot of like, I guess we took in reference from other games that we found, and we started like figuring out what kind of sections were interesting and what were not, and also like creating a lot of Excel sheets, I guess, with stuff that we thought were possible. So for example, we created a lot of sections. So we wanted to create 50 sections. So we had an Excel sheet with ideas for each of the sections that were going to be created, so that they can actually be eventually tackled by one of our team members, and then like start modifying it. We actually had a lot of we added this thing called Pro Mesh Builder to our project, which I'm not sure Pro Builder, I mean, which I'm not sure if you guys have tried it out, but it's excellent to like prototype stuff. So a lot of our stuff was basically done with that. So for example, these stairs, they were created with that, and they were done directly through Unity. So the idea of Pro Builder, if you can see, like for example, I want to create a cylinder. We have a lot of controls. Let me try to find them. So we have some controls here, and they can be docked, for example. And they allow you to basically do a lot of stuff regarding like basics for this. I know Galen and Felipe, they worked a lot with this to basically gray box the different levels. So they could create different sections that were tests, basically, and then Felipe would maybe leave them as is, or maybe change the texture here and there, or then would probably like go ahead and like recreate it in Blender, like if he wanted it to be way cooler, right, than what we were creating here. So, but yeah, Pro Builder is very, very useful for this thing that's called gray boxing, which is basically create levels and create certain stuff with minimal knowledge about modeling and stuff, because you can do it all through Unity, and then iterate faster. So what we do on the spatial level is that whenever you publish or test an environment, we have to strip down everything from Pro Builder, so that we have to like bake all the meshes to be real meshes, as opposed to like Pro Builder meshes, because they have a lot of logic and stuff that we don't want on the runtime. So, but yeah, it's supported, and it was part of the work with this project that we added this. And a lot of our game design or the section design was based on using Pro Builder to test stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, Pro Builder is a great tip. And yeah, we did start supporting that, I think, a while ago. A few months ago, we started supporting Pro Builder. So yeah, highly recommend for those who aren't, 3D modelers, 3D builders, but want to start creating your own original levels and designs. Definitely check out Pro Builder. This is an official Unity tool, so just Google Unity Pro Builder. They have their own tutorial. There's tons of tutorials for Pro Builder. It's built, I believe it's built right into Unity, or is there an extra package you have to download?
I think you have to add it. I'm trying to, so it's, yeah, it's
Package
here.
Manager.
It's in the window package manager, you go to packages Unity registry, and then you can find Pro Builder, and you just like install. So it's not going to be added by default, but you can add it and it's supported.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I forgot about that tool when we were, Jack, last week when we were going through and building that level with the the different arches and stuff like that. We did it the hard way with just taking cubes and like building it, but we probably could have done it kind of quick with Pro Builder. So that's a good reminder.
Yeah, I remember that. I will definitely be adding that to my Unity.
Your repertoire.
That's a great tutorial for Pro Builder too. So
that's awesome.
So that's like the best like Unity built-in way to do like just fundamental 3D modeling within. Yeah. All right, cool.
Yeah,
and if you don't want to go through the craziness of Blender and you just want to build, I think it's relatively. I mean, so you probably can get pretty complicated with an Unity in terms of the meshes you build, but I think it's meant to be like kind of relatively simple.
Yeah, me as a programmer, like I don't have any skills like for like art stuff. So yeah, I love using Pro Builder. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. A great tool. It's a great tool. Well, thank you, Andy, for there's so much information that you gave in the last hour, like an obscene amount of information. Yeah, Tyrone said it. You are an artist, a coder artist. You make dope shit. Exactly.
Thank you.
But yeah, there's so much information you shared. So really appreciate you taking the time today. This is obviously all being recorded. We're going to put this out and probably chop it up into bite-sized pieces because there was a lot of different topics I think were really valuable. Everything from like how Infinite Ascent was built to power-ups to some of the UI stuff that you did and so much more that we want to chop that up so it's easily digestible for everyone. So yeah, thanks for your time. I know there's a lot of questions we didn't get to today. Let us know over in Discord. I know we've gotten some feedback over topics that you want us to cover in future sessions. Also wanted to make sure we mentioned, so today we're doing this session today. It's Wednesday. We started at 12 Eastern. Going forward, we're going to make these regular on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. So we'll be back next week for teaching the toolkit at 2 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday, and then same time, Tuesday, 2 p.m. every week going forward. And then Thursdays, our team will be back on live for Serpent Spatial, where we'll get to play games like Infinite Ascent and other experiences from the community. So stay tuned for that on Thursday. But then otherwise, we'll see you all back next week, next Tuesday. So thanks, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Andy, again. Thank you, Jack, my co-host. In the experience, and we'll see you all soon.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.